So let's start something new. And as much as I'd love to tell you that all there is to it is to go File, New, and click OK, well, technically that's all there really is to it. There's a lot of nuance that you may not expect to the options that you have in this dialog box. And there's some very important concepts that we need to cover that are instrumental to this dialog box that you need to understand before you can truly call yourself a Photoshop user. Now, the first one of those concepts are units. The units that Photoshop supports are pixels, points, millimeters and centimeters, inches, and picas. Pixels we're going to talk about in a moment. Points and picas are of the same unit family, and they're actually dependent upon the imperial inch, which makes it inherently confusing. For instance, there are 6 picas in 1 inch, and points and pixels are contemporarily the same size, though historically there were 72.27 points per inch, but today there are 72 points per inch. And of course, you have your millimeters and centimeters. Now, what exactly are pixels? Pixels, very quickly, are the little squares that make up every image on your computer screen. For instance, if you have a computer screen that is, as they say, 1920 by 1080 or 1444 by 900 or something along those lines, those numbers are the width and height of your computer screen in pixels. So if you're viewing this video full screen on a 1920 by 1080 monitor and the resolution, the depth per inch of that monitor is 72 pixels per inch, all these units are to scale. And even if you don't have a 72 dpi monitor, this square here should still be 10 pixels by 10 pixels. Does it really matter if your computer screen isn't 72 dpi? No, because it's going to be close enough that you probably won't ever even notice it. But what exactly is DPI? Let me illustrate that very quickly for you. If you have a 72 dpi monitor and you're viewing this video at 1920 by 1080, this line right here should be 1 inch long. If you were to take this image file and print it out on most decent printers today, you'd have an option to print it out at 300 dpi, where this line here would be 1 inch long. Or if you came from the future and have an absolutely fantastic monitor that's able to display at 1000 dpi, which is better than the human eye can see without a magnifying glass, this line here would be 1 inch. And that's really simple because in this line here, there are 72 pixels in its width. In this line here, there are 300 pixels in its width. And in this line here, there are 1000 pixels in its width. Now, coming back to actually opening a canvas. When you start a canvas, you have the opportunity here to state what you want to name it. I'm just going to keep it at Untitled 3. I can state the width, the height, the resolution, or choose from a preset. And you have your US international papers, you have various web standards, or your film and video standards if you're doing any sort of video editing. And if you are working, say, with international papers, you have the opportunity to choose your A4 paper or, I don't know, C5 if you really want to. And if you're working with US papers, you have your letter, legal, and tabloid. And if, say, you have a screen capture, you can copy the image from your clipboard. For instance, I have on my clipboard a screen capture of my screen at 1920 by 1080 by 72 dpi. And if you have created any sort of presets, like this one I have here called Full Page, you can have a custom preset that you can save or delete as you see fit. For color mode, you really want to keep this at RGB color at 8-bit. Things start breaking if you don't keep that the way it is. And background contents are pretty straightforward. It's the color of the background of your canvas when you open it. It's really easily changed if it turns out that I wanted to make it black, or I actually want a transparent background. You can either set it here or go in and edit it with a tool that I'll cover later. And for your advanced options, you want to generally not touch those because they could potentially break things in ways that you didn't even think could be broken. The last thing I want to show you here is the image size. If I click OK, the space that the canvas is going to take up on my computer is 4.31 megabytes. Now, if I wanted to make something absolutely ridiculous, like a 1 million, is that 30,000? Yeah, a 300, okay, fine, a 300,000 by a 300,000 pixel image at 72 dpi, suddenly it becomes 251.5 gigabytes. And that's without anything on it. And that'll bog down your computer, likely crash it, and is just unnecessarily ridiculous. So I'm going to put it back to my preset and click OK. And so here I have 4 canvases open. And I have the ability to interact with them very much the same way I can interact with tabs in my windows here. And so I can pull them out, arrange them, nest them, and redock them. I can even pull them out, like windows, out of my window frame for Photoshop, move everything independently of each other, and put them back the way they were to begin with. Ooh, well, that was cute. Okay, there we go. And in the title bar, you can see what that file is called. Since none of these are titled, they're all untitled-number. The zoom size, the color type, which is red, green, blue at 8-bit, and this asterisk here on the end says that I have not saved this. And if I select a layer, and I'll be talking about layers later, it'll say the layer that I have selected. Now, the last thing I want to share with you in this video is that, like these saved workspaces, you have saved preset window layouts, and they're dependent on however many canvases I have open. For instance, I can't select this one unless I have at least 6 canvases open. But since I have 4, I can set them all to vertical columns, or tile them in a grid, or open them all in the same window. I'm not going to go into too much detail about what these things do. It should be pretty self-evident, and they're kind of fun to mess around with. So take a moment, make some canvases, play around with them a bit, and come back with my next video, and I'll tell you all the tricks on how to interact with them on the canvas space. So, yeah.